those of you that were with us in the spring, welcome back. We're going to try something different. We're always improving and doing things differently. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about 3 minutes to welcome you, kind of overview how we're going to spend the next 25 minutes together. And we're going to start turning stress and challenges into conversations worth having. So I'm going to ask you just to click along with me here. And the next slide is, we love this slide of the fish. This working session, we ask you to think as conversations are like the water we swim in, and think about fish that they're constantly in water and they don't realize they're in water until you pull them out of water. And that's what conversations are like. You are constantly having conversations in your mind with other people a majority of your day. And when the water is clean, the fish are thriving, and when your conversations are worth having, you're thriving. And when your conversations are toxic, it's really unhealthy for you. So what we're going to do in this Kickstart series is we're going to go through 2 simple practices. And those of you familiar with the book Conversations Worth Having, we're going to be doing generative questions and positive framing into conversations worth having based on topics that you are selecting, and we're going to help you through. So in a moment, I'm going to turn off the slides and we're going to work through the chat and the Annotate. And how we're going to do this today, and this is something different than what we did in the spring. In the chat, we're going to ask anyone to type in a suggestion, or first of all, type in a challenge or a problem that they're having. And then we're going to get through as many problems or challenges as we can. We usually can do 3 or 4 in about 25 minutes. And then we're going to ask anyone to type in a suggestion for the positive opposite. And if we pick the participant's problem, we're going to ask you to choose what positive opposite makes most sense to you. And once you pick that positive opposite, we're going to ask that participant that if the positive opposite was true, what would the situation look like? And then we're going to go onto the whiteboard, which Sherry's going to be managing, and that's where we're going to put in generative questions. So I'm just kind of overviewing, and then I'm going to coach you through this when we move on to the chat and the whiteboard. So if you're new to Annotate, when I click off the slides, the chat box will be to your right, and then you're going to pull up the whiteboard, and we'll click you through how to use the whiteboard when we're ready to type in questions. But usually you'll have something along the top of your screen if you're new to Zoom, where you can view the options, you can select Annotate, you can pick your favorite color, set it to like 12 or 14 font, and then we will type away. And if you are ever interested in the conversational toolkit, you can just go to our website. There's the preface, introduction, the executive summary of the book, and we also have a YouTube channel. So Sherry, I am going to stop sharing my slides. Now we can see everybody, and I can see the chat. Okay, so my first question to you is, in the chat, type a problem or a challenge you may have brought with you today. Problem or a challenge you may have brought with you to the session today. So anybody can do it. So go over, make sure it's set to everyone, that it's not set privately, and type in a challenge or a problem you brought with you today. Zoom fatigue, and she still showed up, Michelle. Thank you. All right, that's a good one. Zoom fatigue. Any other problems or challenges?
Or even just a conversation you're not sure how to have, a challenging conversation.
Maintaining relationships in a virtual work, getting evenings off from work on weekends. How about getting the whole weekend off, Brian? But yes, I managing workload. Okay, we've got 4 of them. So now what we're going to do is I'm just going to go to the top and I'm going to put down Michelle's Zoom fatigue. So you guys, what's the opposite? What's the positive opposite? Anybody can type in, what's the positive opposite of Zoom fatigue? So go into the chat and type, what's the positive opposite of Zoom fatigue? Energized by Zoom. Okay, Zoom energy, Zoom excitement. So Michelle's smiling, she's getting excited. So Michelle, what we want to do is, knowing that you're Zoom fatigued, which one of these positive opposites resonates best with you? You get to pick the one. You got to unmute yourself. And you've got several positive opposites. So just, you could pick one and cut and paste it into the everyone, or I can do it for you. You can,
or just speak it out and I'll type it onto the whiteboard.
That'd be great. They're all wonderful. I like Zoom excitement and Zoom energy.
Okay, Zoom excitement and Zoom energy. So,
I also like stamina too. That's pretty cool.
Okay, so that's the positive opposite for Zoom fatigue. So what we want to do is, if the positive opposite is true, Michelle, what would be the outcome? Think about the positive opposite was true. And anybody can type in the chat for Michelle. If there was Zoom excitement and energy going on, what would be the frame? What would we really want to know more about?
Jackie, can I say something?
Absolutely. This is your problem, but we're all experiencing it probably.
I think if the positive opposite were in play, I would immediately recognize the positive impact of whatever session it is first, instead of the dread of, oh, another Zoom.
Okay, so Sherry, you're on whiteboard. Can you type in, she likes the idea of recognizing the positive impact of meetings? Is that what I heard?
Correct.
All right. So what we're doing, those of you that were with us in the spring, what we're doing right now is we're taking more time of doing the flip. We've got a problem, Zoom fatigue. The positive opposite is you guys are all excited to be on Zoom, and recognizing the positive impact of Zoom, which are virtual meetings. Now, what we're going to have you do, and Suzette Brown has already typed in chat. So this is where you can either type your questions in chat, or you can go play on the Annotate. So Sherry and I will cut any questions, cut and paste you type in the Zoom group chat. But if you go to view options on the top of your screen and click on Annotate, pick your favorite color. I'm picking blue, and pick your font size. I'm going to pick 14. We would like you to put your questions on the Annotate board. These are generative questions that any of us, but Michelle in particular, needs to go study to ask.
We have what activities help me feel more engaged? What innovative thinking in moving forward in solving the challenge or problem? Let's see, Cynthia, how might you turn that into a question?
And the other thing you can do is there's a function called stamp, and you can click on a stamp and you can get a star or a heart. If you really like someone's question, you can put that there as well. Look at all these questions popping up here, Michelle.
So I'm noticing that the frame has disappeared.
I think only you have privilege to make things.
Yes. So Michelle, can you say one more time? It was what the the actual frame was. It was from Zoom fatigue to Zoom energizing to recognizing the positive impact. Was that what it was? You might be on mute.
Yes, that's correct. I couldn't find my unmute button on the Annotate screen.
Okay.
Sorry. But yes, recognizing that positive impact, sort of in a more visionary, macrocosmic approach as opposed to, oh, another Zoom meeting.
And Vicki Bauman, I just threw your questions. So if anybody's typing in the chat, I'm throwing your questions onto the Annotate board.
So when you're thinking about doing these questions, be thinking about this positive frame and not about Zoom fatigue and not about being energized by Zoom. Because what Michelle has done is frame that what she would like is to be able to recognize, even before the meeting starts, recognize what the positive impact of this meeting is going to be. So instead of coming to the meeting dreading it, she comes really prepared. And so what questions might she ask that would support that outcome? So, because a lot of these questions are about how to make Zoom more energizing, which are great questions, and I think we'd all love to have that, but it's not a question about the frame that Michelle has actually selected.
These are really great questions. I've been starting to keep a log of Zoom activities that I can do to start that make people smile and have energy and halfway through. So these are wonderful. One of the things Sherry and I are doing is if you look at your toolbar, you'll see right next to the red star X, don't press the red X, but you'll see save, and you can save these and they go into a Zoom file on your PC. But we also use these recordings and we put these out for you. So if you forget to save them, we've got these.
Yeah, so just to point out quickly.
Jackie.
Go ahead.
This is Vicki Bowman. I wanted to say thank you just for your awareness. I don't have any of the features of Zoom. That's a limitation of my organization. So I can't do any of the additional features with it. So anything that you have that you provide would be helpful.
Don't worry, Vicki. And I'm taking your questions, Vicki, in the chat, and I'm putting them out to the whiteboard for you.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Gotcha. Okay. So this is quite colorful.
Yeah, and just notice that now there are some of these questions that are really specifically about recognizing the positive impact before the meeting. What are the best ways to prepare in advance for effective and energizing meeting? Who's on the call when you're most excited and energized? So those are the kinds of things that will help Michelle actually have the outcome that she's looking for.
All right, so Michelle, are you happy? You're smiling on Zoom.
I am so happy. I want you all to solve all of my issues. Thanks, everyone.
So what we're going to do is we're going to save this, and you can also save yourself on the toolbar, your Annotate bar. There's a save file. Sherry, you're going to clear this, and we're going to pick another problem that's in the chat box. Zoom fatigue. Vicki put a problem after Zoom fatigue called managing workload. Managing workload. So Sherry, how about if we put managing workload up in the top left? And anybody can type in the chat, what's the positive opposite of managing workloads?
It actually kind of feels a little like it is the positive opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's actually, yeah, your workload is unmanageable. So the positive opposite. Who wrote down managing workload?
That was me. And as soon as you said that, I realized it does. That was Vicki Bowman who wrote that down.
Vicki, you gave us the positive opposite.
So now what might
workloads? Now people are framing it. If you've managed your workload, the positive opposite would be balanced work, rest, and play. Balanced.
Or the frame would be.
Frame. I'm sorry, the frame. So that's a wonderful frame, Jamie. Balanced work, rest.
That, yeah.
Play. Another frame is clear priorities and energy management by Lisa. So Vicki, since this is your challenge, which frame, you've got 3 of them up there, really resonates with you?
The clear priorities and energy management, that's exactly the issue. Is you have competing priorities and it's draining and stressful.
Okay, so now that we have the positive opposite, which is managing a workload, and if the positive opposite was true, your frame would be clear priorities and energy management. That's your positive frame. So what we want you to do is, you know the drill now, go to the Annotate bar, pick your favorite colored 14-point. You figured out how to use stamps. And what are generative questions for Vicki, and actually all of us, because I need this, clear priorities and energy management, that would help us have a conversation worth having around this frame. And you can type questions in the chat, and I'm watching the chat, and I will pull it from there as well. Oh, Vicki, that's a beautiful question. Okay, I'm going to put the
That's a great question. What activities give you energy towards completing your goals? What do your clear priorities look like? How will you know when you have them? When do I feel most energized? What level of engagement do each of my... Michelle, you might want to make your font just a little smaller.
nice.
Which of these questions feels like it would be really helpful for you?
There was one that I saw definitely. I think all of them are great questions, so I'm looking forward to receiving this. I like the how do I conserve my energy, because I think that's something that's important. You can, in terms of remembering to build into your day ways to conserve your energy, because when you have a lot of priorities, you're kind of moving constantly and you don't realize to take a moment in between. And someone said something about completion. So I think that ties in from the standpoint of, if you take a moment to conserve your energy and in that space, maybe recognize what you have completed, that could energize you to move on to the next thing.
Nice. Great insight.
All right. I say we got, I think we have time for 1 or 2 more questions, Sherry. So if we can save this.
Saved.
And then you can clear it. And let's definitely do one more. All right, so I'm scrolling back up to people's challenges and problems. I think Cliff put in maintaining relationships in a virtual work environment. Maintaining relationships.
Which I guess is the positive. I want to maintain those relationships. So I guess the problem is difficulty maintaining relationships.
Okay, that's okay if you started with the positive opposite.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, so if the positive opposite is maintaining relationships in a virtual work environment, imagine that's the outcome. What would the frame be? If you had great relationships in a virtual work environment, you were able to maintain them. If the positive opposite was true, what would the frame be?
What's the outcome if you're able to maintain relationships in a virtual environment?
The outcome is trust, open communication, a sense of synergy.
And Cynthia has typed in collaboration. You can draw from, Jamie says connections with others are strong.
Oh, I like what Laura put, camaraderie. You still feel good even though you're not physically with the person.
So do you want to add to this, your trust, open communication, a sense of synergy? Do you want to add anything more to that?
And I would just add and camaraderie at the end of that.
All right, so that's going on in your environment. So now you guys know the drill. Time to add some generative questions. Generative questions to learn more about that frame.
So when has your team felt most connected and what supported that? Great question. When I feel connected with people in person, what are the elements that I can recreate in a virtual world? Great question. What leads to our team trusting? Yeah, they're all flying in. These are great questions.
So behind the scene, we move things around when they fall on top of each other.
I like that one also. How do we stay truly connected when we don't virtually or physically see each other? And what do we currently use for communication and in synergy? How do we build on that? Which of these are resonating for you?
Yeah, a bunch of them, but I like the one that just popped up. How can we set time for informal chats? You know, I think that's kind of what I miss in the virtual environment is those opportunities where I wasn't planning to see somebody or talk to somebody, but just happened to run into them in the hall, and and that's what I really miss. I think is there are times when I don't know that somebody needs to talk about something. But when I would run into them in person, I could tell that. But when I don't cross paths with them informally.
Someone's going to develop an app where it's like the Zoom hallway. Your avatar's going to be in.
Yeah, it reminds me that you could even have a couple of times a day where you know, you keep the Zoom meeting open, but nobody's in it, but somebody can show up and go, hey, is anybody here?
Yeah, office hours is what I've
Yeah,
heard those
yes.
called. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys got to be a professor like me. That's what we do. We turn on our Zoom for 2 hours, and believe it or not, people pop in to your Zoom office hours.
That's great. I love the way you wrote that. How can you create a virtual water cooler? What a great, innovative question.
Yeah, I'm taking some questions over from the chat and throwing them in here.
Wonderful.
Yeah, lots of ideas.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I think we have time for one more question, if we can save this, Sherry.
Yep.
We're going to do a 2-for-1 deal. So I'm going to explain to Sherry what the problem is and why it's a 2-for-1 deal. Laura said, how to convince a group of colleagues to do something they don't want to do. And Suzette gave a scenario. The state numbers are still high, but the board is pushing in-person learning for K through 12. So I'm kind of mucking these a little bit together. But how do we convince a group of colleagues to do something they don't want to do? Laura, that was put in there. And then right below you was Suzette Brown, said state numbers are still high, but the board is pushing in-person learning. Those kind of go a little bit together to me.
So what would be what's the problem or the thing we're trying to flip?
Colleagues don't want to do something. Would that be correct, Laura? That a group doesn't want to do something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it creates more work for them.
Put both of those so it gets the COVID thing as well.
Yeah, they don't want to because it creates more work. It's not safe. So the positive opposite, if you guys could type in the chat, what's the positive opposite of a group that does not want to do something because it's more work or it's not safe? What's the positive opposite?
Colleagues are informed and excited.
I love that, Jamie. The positive colleagues are excited about new and different work. Group sees value. Laura, do you see a positive opposite flipping or jumping out on the chat for you?
One that resonates?
Colleagues embrace a new approach.
Okay, so the positive opposite is simply the colleagues embrace a new approach. So if the positive opposite was true, if your colleagues were embracing a new approach, what would the outcome be? If the positive opposite is true, what would the outcome be, the frame?
The work would get done quickly and happily.
Work gets done. Our work gets done.
Not just that it gets done, but you know that that there's you know, true collaboration. You know, that people are invested.
Yeah, Michelle put colleagues enjoy new work and offer suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
The group sees opportunity to work better together with a new approach. Yes, that brings in the collaboration. Thank you, Lisa. So how about if we begin to put in generative questions, and Vicki, I'm gonna put yours in.
I guess what I'm missing here is after we get these generative questions, then what do you do?
You engage it's either a conversation with yourself using these questions, or you engage with your colleagues, with your team in a conversation. So for instance, if our work gets done collaboratively, quickly, and happily, then you might ask people in your in your group, when has our group embraced change, and how can we bring elements of that experience and build it into this one? Or how can we show, let's see, we have, how can we show colleagues the importance of the work they are doing? So whoever is typing, Cynthia, you want to ask a question that sparks a conversation with someone. So if you can think of what would you ask someone to help them recognize the importance of the work they're doing? So that would be the idea, to engage in a conversation. Tell me about a time when you really recognize the importance of your work. Or Jamie's other question, when have we been informed and had some choice in new initiatives, and what contributed to that success? And I'm going back to what your original plan, your question was also, which was colleagues do not want to, don't want this new plan because it creates more work. A question might be, how can we get this work done in less time than we're, you know, imagine we got the work we're now called to do done in less time. What would that look like?
I like the question, how can we engage colleagues in defining how we meet the need? And these types of generative questions are about exploring either when it was done well in the past, what's possible now, and how to move forward, versus a blaming, griping, protecting session. So you'll find the questions, I believe this was Laura, that really resonate. Yeah, that's the question I need to ask. Or sometimes there's 2 or 3 questions from here.
Yeah, the one that's resonating is, how can we engage the colleagues in defining how we meet the need?
Yep, right at the top there.
Yeah.
Great.
All right.
Can I comment here, Jackie?
Absolutely, Vicki, please.
I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed this exercise, and I wanted to say, I actually provided that, and I don't know if my thought process, I want to get your feedback on my thought process. When we were talking about this, that took me to my appreciative inquiry thoughts, where we should engage the people who we want to buy into the change.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
There was a saying in one of the groups, don't do anything about me without me.
Okay.
And it's asking a generative question that moves you into your positive frame that you want, that will get you there, versus, you know, you didn't ask me and you don't know what I think. No, let's engage and have these kinds of conversations. So I really wanted to squish in this last question, even though we're here for 30 minutes. And I hope you guys enjoyed being with Sherry and I today. We really wanted to spend more time in these next 6 weeks. How do you take that challenge? How do you flip it to the positive opposite? And if it was true, we can frame it and ask him generative questions.
So are the next sessions going to follow the same pattern, or are we building from session to session?
We're going to be doing this, so you can come back as many times as you want. So practice, practice, practice really puts you in this space. So we're going to go over the same instructions quickly, and we're going to practice with even more challenges and problems so that it becomes seamless for you. Who asked that question? That was a really good question. Is it you, Laura?
Yeah, it's that notion of when it starts to become second nature to you, you'll find all your conversations start to really move you towards what you want more of in life and create much stronger connections with people.
And we guarantee you, people will bring you challenges, problems, and situations, but this will become second nature, where you will, in your mind, do the flip, help the person frame it. You will throw a couple questions and begin to explore the answers to those questions with other people, so that this becomes second nature with you.
Yeah, it'll also start to cause you to begin thinking about, oh, there are a lot of different possible outcomes from this flip. I wonder what would be an outcome, not just that I want, but everybody who needs to be in the conversation, what do they want? So it's just practice.
And as Brian Dooley mentioned, absolutely, you're more than welcome. And when we did this last spring, all we did was generative questions, and we kind of felt we could up the learning here and the skill set to have you guys really practice the framing before you jump into questions. So you are free to go for the day and come back next week. We will, on the list, you will get the recording and you will get the 4 visuals of the generative questions, of the 4 slides we did.
Yeah, as well as everything that was in the chat. So we'll make sure everything's integrated for you. Thank you for playing with us today.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of the week.
Bye.